soundbite that you want, give me the thumbs up. You've got your 20 seconds. So, all right, thank you. And I know I say it every week, but always appreciate you being here and covering Wake Forest football in our program. Just quickly on Clemson, certainly proud of the effort, proud of the energy. I thought our guys played really hard. Going into the game, our big thing on defense was to limit the explosives, and we did a good job of that. Their longest pass was 16 yards. They had a couple of runs, 20, 21 yards, but we really did not allow the ball to get over our head, which was critical in that game. I thought we tackled well. We created a turnover on defense. We had one on special teams. You know, offensively, we took care of the ball. We had the one turnover. You know, I didn't think we beat ourselves the way that we did in the Georgia Tech game and the ODU game. But right now, what is really been hurting us really all year is just our red zone offense. You know, our red zone execution has to improve. There's too many plays that we left out there. You know, whether a receiver was open and we missed him, or a guy was wide open and there was a protection breakdown. You know, we had people open. We got kind of what we wanted from the design of the plays. And it was hard watching that film Sunday because, you know, if you score any of those touchdowns, it's a different football game. And, you know, we got down there 5 times and scored 1 touchdown. And that's not, again, different problems pop up. You know, the last 3 years in the ACC, we've been 2nd, 3rd, and 4th in red zone offense. And this year, right now, we're dead last in terms of touchdown percentage. And, you know, so as much as, again, we didn't turn the ball over as much and we didn't take as many sacks and we had less negative yardage plays, you know, our inability to score in the red zone, and again, give Clemson credit, you know, they stopped us. But that to me was probably the difference in the game. So, you know, the great thing about football is you have a game the next week. And this week we go up to Virginia Tech, which I think is one of the best game day atmospheres in the ACC. You know, the fans up there, you know, love their Hokies and they have great fan support. Like Clemson, it's always a hard environment to play in. I've coached up there 2 times, once at Bowling Green and once here at Wake Forest, and neither time is a really good memory. I've known Coach Pry a long time. I coached him at the University of Buffalo in 1991. So I was hired as the secondary coach at Buffalo in like December of 90 or January of 91, and Coach Pry was one of my safeties. So that was, what, 32 years ago. And he certainly has gone on. He comes from a coaching family. His dad, Jim Pry, was an excellent football coach at a number of places, Buffalo, East Stroudsburg. And so, you know, Brent's kind of come up the right way. He GA'd at Virginia Tech and was at Western Carolina and a lot of places, and then was at Vanderbilt, and then had a lot of success at Penn State as the defensive coordinator. They're improving. He's building a program. You know, they're going through some of the ups and downs of growing pains. But I think they're clearly better from what I saw in film a year ago. The quarterback is a heck of a player, Drones. He's a really big, good-looking athlete. He's 6'2", 234, throws a really nice deep ball, very athletic. He's rushed for about 300 yards, and he has certainly given them a spark. The running back, 33, Tutton, I'm not sure how you pronounce it, is a very good player. He had a 99-yard kick return against Florida State. If you can outrun Florida State's kickoff team, you probably are pretty fast. And they are trying to get him the ball, and he's a good mix of speed and physicalness. They certainly got some transfers on offense. The guy Lane from Middle Tennessee State certainly sticks out. Gosnell, who transferred from North Carolina, is somebody that we recruited heavily in high school. You know, small world, their center, Caden Moore, Coach Higgins and I coached his dad at Lehigh back in 1993, and he is a very good player as well. On defense, the 2 corners are excellent, strong, and I believe it's Delaney Four is a very versatile player. He can play corner, he can play nickel, he can play safety. The linebacker, 21, Lawson, is 6'4", 230, and just very athletic, very productive. And they got a defensive end from Florida, Powell Ryland, 52, who is an elite pass rusher. And probably the best part of their team is their special teams. Their special teams coordinator, Stu Holt, is one of the very best in the business. He was at App, did a great job there, then went to Louisville with Satterfield and was really good there. And their special teams, every one of their units is in the top half of the ACC. So the whole Beamer ball and Virginia Tech tradition of being great on special teams, they're really, really good. They do a great job on all four units. It's well thought out. There's change-ups. Some people just kind of do what they do. He has a really good mix of being fundamentally sound with some change-ups that he makes you work. So this should be a good game. We're excited to get up there and try to get a win. It's been a while. So with that, I'll take any questions.
On the missed opportunities in the red zone, is there a different perspective on Mitch's game? You sounded pretty positive on him coming out of the game Saturday.
Well, when you play, whatever, 65 or 70 plays, right? We grade every play. And so the overall grade, in terms of his execution level, not making mistakes, was higher. But the ultimate grade for the quarterback is winning the football game. And in that way, we're not happy with the result. Now, anytime you lose a game by one score, you can go back and say, well, if you made this play, if you made this play, if you made this play, right? If, the one time we blitz, if the one guy keeps contained and forces the ball inside, it's not a 20-yard play, they don't score a touchdown. If the one time on the zone read, the guy who had the quarterback didn't get frozen on the back and makes a tackle, we had Jamal Banks open and we missed him. And so anytime you lose a one-score game, you can pick out 15 different plays that if you made that play, maybe the result is different. Some of that was at the quarterback position, some of it was at the running back position, some of it was at the left or right guard position, some of it was at the safety position. When you don't win, there's always enough, and ultimately it's our job to get those guys to do that. So, again, you always look at yourself first. After the last two games, there was certainly a great emphasis on not turning the football over, stepping forward in the pocket, getting positive yards whenever possible. And there's times that he did what we asked him to do and maybe over-adjusted a little bit. But gave us a chance to win the game. If they don't have that one shoestring tackle, he probably scores on that run. And, it's hard when you're that close in a one-score game. So, yeah, he got better. Did he play to a winning level? No, he didn't win the game. But he made progress.
Knowing the type of competitor that he is, are you finding it difficult to keep him reined in as far as you're growing? It might not be showing up in the results you wanted for the last 2 weeks?
Every game is different, Connor. I mean, if you watch that game, he got the absolute crap kicked out of him. And he kept playing and he kept competing, and that was not an easy game to play quarterback. So again, the goal is to win. Mitch will be the first one to tell you, I wish I'd have made this play, that play, that play. I've said for 3 weeks we got to play better around him. I mean, that guy got killed. I mean, the fact that he could even walk Sunday after you watch the film, and he went right back in there and he played with courage and he kept his eyes down the field and he didn't look at the pass rush, that's progress. So, again, we got to get him better. We got to help him. But I thought he got better in terms of his overall execution of the offense. And would we like to have 5 or 6 plays back? Absolutely. But if you win a game by 28 points, you have those 5 or 6 plays too.
Dave, what's your and Warren's philosophy on fixing red zone issues? You guys have done this a while.
I mean, you know, you call plays and guys are open. If, like, I turned on the film and say, well, you know, we ran this concept and everybody's covered and they had us. I mean, we had Jamal open on the one naked bootleg and we missed it. And then we came back and we ran a little high-low concept and he was open in the back of the end zone. And, you know, we pass rush kind of jerked Mitch around and he was trying to step up and make it, and then he got disrupted, and then 3 other guys were on him. You know, I mean, could he throw it a fraction of a second earlier? Maybe. You know, but you look at the plays and you say, did we get from the design of the play what we wanted? And not always. I mean, you always go back and you can't, you know, boy, maybe we should have called this. I mean, it's human nature. But, you know, I mean, some things were there and were open and we just didn't execute as well as we need to. And when you play a team like Clemson, they make it harder to execute. I mean, they're really good up front. That is an elite defensive line front. And our offensive linemen, I mean, they battled. They did. I mean, that was baptism by fire for some of those guys that are playing for the first time. But I thought our O-line played really hard. They weren't perfect. They'll get better. But that was a heck of a challenge for them.
With you having lost 2 in a row and being 0-2 in conference, is there any extra sense of urgency to get these fixes done faster?
I mean, there's a sense of urgency every day, every week when you do this football. You do this job, Tony. I mean, it's like you don't turn that switch on and off because you lose 2. I mean, 2 years ago we were 6-0 or 7-0, and there was a sense of urgency to get the next game. And it's just the way we're wired, right? That, you know, it never, it's always there. The first few years when we played Virginia Tech and we were 2-8, there was a sense of urgency. I mean, that's just how you operate as a coach. You know, you really go into every game thinking that next game is going to dictate your whole season. And then regardless of what happens, you come back to work Sunday and you make corrections and you try to get things fixed. But I mean, the urgency, I mean, has been there day one. The results aren't always there, but the urgency is. So, I mean, we wanted to beat Georgia Tech. We wanted to beat Clemson, and we want to beat Virginia Tech. I mean, that's what we do. And there was urgency a week ago. I can't tell you, well, now there's real urgency. You know what I'm saying? It's just, and I don't mean to be, but I don't know. You know, maybe it's from my first year as a head coach that we were 0-11, but you know, for 24 years, I feel like I'm coaching for my job every single week. And it doesn't matter if we won the previous game or lost the previous game. It doesn't matter what the record was the year before. I mean, it's blinders on and let's go.
It seems there's a host of guys that could be on the verge of coming back into the mix for you. Do you have any status updates on guys like Nick Sharp, Brennan Harris, Chase Jones, and maybe Donovan Green?
I mean, I think all 4 of those guys are going to be out for the year. I'd be shocked if we get Donnie, Chase, Nick. Who's the other one? Brennan Harris. I think we'll get him back in November. I would guess that we'll have him back for Duke or NC State. Now, we are starting to get some guys back. Spencer Clapp is supposed to practice tomorrow. Jaden Gerard practiced today. I think Devon Patterson will be able to start practicing next week. So we are getting some guys back. And then Brendan Harris, like I said, I think we'll get him back at some point late October, early November. I will be shocked if we get Donovan, Chase, or Nick back this year.
Does that mean for Chase Jones?
I don't know. It's just one of those things that is just taken longer than anybody anticipated. And we just do what the medical people tell us to do. So it's, you know, we're never going to put a player out there unless, you know, it's safe and they're cleared. And so that is just, again, I coach the team, and the doctors and the trainers say this is who you have. And they give us updates, and that's one of those ones that, you know, it could clear up next week. I'm never ever thought we would play this year without Chase Jones. I mean, obviously, he was one of our key starters back and one of our captains, but we're not gonna put him or any player at risk.
In that list of players, can you comment on Justice Ellison? What's his status?
He practiced today and, you know, had limited reps, but he did practice. I mean, he went into the game on Saturday, and we expected him to play, and he re-injured it right away. So I think he's a go. He practiced today, and I know he wants to play. And it was just a kind of a freak play that happened, that it was almost similar to how he got hurt the first time.
Given the fact that Chase has been out so far, what does that say about what Glenn Spencer has done with that linebacker room? Because it feels like you've gotten excellent production out of that group so far, and they're playing at a high level.
I mean, Jacob Roberts is clearly a good player. Dylan Hazen has become a really good linebacker. I mean, he is playing really good football. He played really well against Clemson. He tackled thick. His fits were really good. The one play in the goal line, he jumped over the center, and then, you know, he is. It's to me, it's always the second year guys play that they become good players. And last year was really, you know, the first year he played. And there's times he did good things, but he was inconsistent. Now he's comfortable, he's confident, he's playing fast, and he's playing both linebacker positions, which isn't easy. And the other guy that's making really good strides is Quincy Bryant. Quincy is playing good football. He's getting better every week. He's probably where Dylan was a year ago, but the trajectory is definitely upward. And you know, Aiden Hall's coming along, and we're down Chase and Draco, which we thought were two of our top three linebackers going into the season. So I think Glenn has done an amazing job to get those guys ready and productive and playing to the level they're playing at.
I might be able to get it through context, but when you say Dylan Hazen is playing thick, what does that mean?
Well, it's a lot of times, you know, like the way you teach a tackle, right, that you're gonna, you know, you make contact with your chest and eyes to the sky, and you drive through a guy. You know, you don't want guys diving at knees and making arm tackles, or, you know, and it takes courage to do that. Like I would say very early in the game, the tackle Malik had, that was a thick tackle. I mean, it was a lot of body surface, driving the guy back. That's a form-fit, fundamental tackle. And Dylan has a lot of those tackles. And a lot of times, young linebackers will get on edges and they'll get juked, and they might make the tackle, but you know, they drag them for 2 or 3 yards. You know, when a linebacker makes a downhill fit, you know, want to be form fit, drive the guy back, gang tackle it, try to get the ball stripped. And Dylan is making very thick, good tackles against good backs.
You talked about drones, but Grant Wells is back on their depth chart. What's the challenge of knowing you could face both quarterbacks Saturday?
Yeah, I mean, what they want to do with both those guys is different. You know, Grant is more, a little more traditional. You know, we certainly saw a lot of him because we played ODU after they did, and he played really well. He threw some really good balls. And then drones, you know, the offense changes a little bit. You know, they run a little more zone read, power read concepts. You know, I think maybe with Grant, you know, the progression can get to 3 or 4, and you know, with drones, he's a little quicker to take off because he's really good at it. I mean, he had the one run against Florida State on a scramble that, I mean, he made 2 or 3 guys miss, and just very subtle cuts, but he starts barreling down at you, and he's 235 pounds. So he's a really good athlete, and both of those guys are good players. You know, you got to give them credit. You know, they were down 22-0 to Florida State, and you know, certainly in my first 2 years here, if that happened, I mean, I remember one game, I think NC State, we were down 28-0 at the end of the first quarter. You know, I start going ×4. I don't know if the scoreboard has a 3rd digit. For them to come back after that and make that 22-17 and make that game go into the fourth quarter, it tells you they're still playing hard for their coach. In the first 2 years, when you build a program, that's hard to do. You know, they haven't had a lot of success. You know, that was a big win over Pitt, you know, that they had. That was a great win for them, but they're still playing hard. And when you're on the road to a top 5 team in the country and you're down 22-0 and your guys are still playing, you know, that's a really positive sign for their program.
Last week after Clemson, you said that the offensive play calling was kind of dictated by the defensive pace and how your defense was playing. Is that going to continue this week?
I mean, every week is different. You know, part of what we do in game planning is it's not just schematic, but we look at personnel matchups. And, I mean, I'll tell you, going into the Clemson game, you know, in some ways, we're almost down 2 tackles. And then you look at what they have rushing the edge, and our thing was just we didn't want to lose the game on 3rd and long. We certainly called enough passes. We were going to throw the ball, you know, but we didn't want to be 3rd and 13 and have number 3 widened and teed off and have a strip sack. We had to stay out of that situation. So I don't think our 1st and 10 and our 2nd down play calling was any different than we normally do. The only thing we did differently is if we had some 3rd and longs, you know, with the 0 blitzes that they were running, our chance to hit a seam in a run play was certainly as good as our ability to protect. And part of it is just we got young guys. I mean, there's times that, you know, we have hot reads and the ball was right on the money and the receiver's like not expecting it. You know, and we made a year ago, we had those same plays and we had veteran receivers that made those plays. And, you know, they'll learn, they'll get there. But sometimes the first time they're in that environment, you know, it's not how you practice it, and we'll be better for it.
Brent Pry talked today about when you were his defensive backs coach. And I want to know what you remember about being his coach, because he said he was not a very good defensive back, and you had your hands full with him.
I definitely had my hands full with them. Brent is a personality. He's a fun guy to be around. You know, now the year I coached him, he was injured a lot of the time. He was hurt a lot of the time, but he was tough. He wasn't scared of contact. His dad was a hard-nosed football coach, and he raised a hard-nosed son. So I remember Brent being tough and physical and not scared of contact. Unfortunately, he was injured a lot. You know, certainly some long conversations with him about things that I'll leave him there. But he's always fun to be around. He's a very enjoyable, likable personality, and you can see why he's had success as a coach and why players like him and why he's a good recruiter. And, you know, it's kind of been fun to reconnect a little bit in the ACC meetings of here's a guy that I coached 30 years ago, and now he's a head coach, and I'm proud of him. You know, just like I'm proud of other guys that have worked for me that have success. You know, I'm watching the game last night, and the defensive coordinator for the Las Vegas Raiders, coaching Luke Masterson, is Patrick Graham, who worked for me at Fordham and Richmond, and then Florida State's having great success, and their defensive coordinator, Adam Fuller, worked for me at Richmond and is a really good person and a good football coach. And proud of what Mike Elko is doing at Duke. You know, I don't root for them. And I'm sure Mike doesn't root for us, but I'm proud of what Mike's doing, you know. So it's kind of neat in this profession when you know guys when they're young. I mean, I hired Mike when he was 22 years old. And I coached Brent when he was 18 or 19 or 20. So it's good to see guys do really good things with their lives. And again, I'm proud of them, and I want to beat him. And I'm sure he wants to beat his old coach.
You talked about the ACC meetings and reconnecting with some of these guys. I'm telling you, Pry today called you a good spokesperson for coaches throughout the ACC and the country, because you're the ultimate professional and that you're good at addressing big picture NCAA issues. Do you see yourself in that role?
Oh, I mean, it kind of, you know, the way the ACC coaches meetings work is every year there's a new head of the ACC. And so, you know, I'm fortunate to be a head coach long enough in this league that eventually it was my turn to take over that role in 2019. And then COVID hit, and they asked if I'd continue to do it through 20 because it was COVID. And then we had a new commissioner in 21, and they asked me if I'd continue to do it in 21 because of the new commissioner. And so a role that I was supposed to have for 1 year, I ended up having for 3 years. And so for 3 years, you know, our monthly Zoom calls and our annual meetings, I ran all of those. And then part of my job was to report to Todd Berry at the AFCA how the ACC felt about certain issues and to kind of represent the coaches with those things. And some of those things that we felt strongly about got done. And then getting to know Todd, once I stepped away from being the head of the ACC coaches, I was asked to join the AFCA board. So a lot of times in those league meetings, you know, I'm sure guys are sick of me talking, but because for 3 years I ran the meetings, and then since then I've been on the AFCA board. You know, I've been in a little bit of a leadership position since Brent's been in the league. So there's times because he's new that, Dave, why did we have that conversation? What was that about? What did I miss before I was here? You know, okay, Brent, we talked about this because 2 years ago this was an issue and we got there with it. And so, you know, I think he's comfortable calling me on those things because, you know, we've known each other for 30 years.
Sam, I don't want to interrupt anyone. One of the phrases that gets thrown around a lot is complimentary football.
Mm-hmm.
How far away are you guys? Last year, the offense was putting up points, but the defense had issues. Now, it's you're not putting up enough points. How far away is this team and this program from playing complimentary football?
I mean, I think we're close, but that's easy to say and harder to do. You know, I mean, I always look at our football team every year and I say, what's the best way for this football team to play to win games? In those first 3 years, it was to be a little bit more conservative on offense and hope our defense could keep us in games and get to the fourth quarter. And heck, we won some 3-0 and 6-3 barn burners doing that. And that was a formula. And then in 17, once the offense probably caught up and passed the defense, then I thought it made sense for us to play with a little more tempo and speed because of some of the skill we had on offense. And this year, I think we're a little more balanced. You know, we've struggled a little bit on offense, but I think we have good players that are learning every week. You know, it's still an offense that, you know, scored whatever against Vanderbilt and scored 27 second half points to beat ODU. The last 2 weeks haven't been our best effort, but I don't think we're that far away. But like I said, easier said than done. Every coach can get up here and say they're close. You know, we'll find out Saturday how close.
Anything else, guys?
Dave, with the red zone issues, and obviously you've probably seen that Virginia Tech hasn't exactly been stout in their own right, defending people in the red zone. How much of a balancing act is it to get guys not to press too hard, thinking that obviously they've made the mistakes in the past, but this is an opportunity for them, and how much is it to really get them over that hump?
I mean, it's not to simplify it, but you have to execute the plays called. And what happens sometimes, you know, is teams change their defense in the red zone. You know, so most teams become a lot more pressure oriented. And so you're running plays in the field and you're getting certain looks, and then you get into the red zone, and because of the different pressures you get and the tightness of the coverage, you know, the margin for error gets smaller and the field shrinks. And we have to execute better. And I know that's a cliche, but if you watch the film, which I'm sure you do, you can see that we had guys open. We had plays to be made. So I don't think you go back and say, hey, it's not working, everybody's covered. You know, Mitch is a shoestring away from scoring on the one. We have Jamal Banks wide open on 2 consecutive plays that we missed the one throw. And it's just getting guys comfortable with the plays we're running so they can execute them under pressure, you know, in a game environment. So it just, we gotta execute the plays better. And, you know, what Virginia Tech does in the red zone is different than what Clemson does in the red zone. So it's not like we're gonna run the exact same plays.